Our guest today is Sanjay Saxena, founder CEO of Destination Himalayas, an organization committed to environmentally and socially responsible travel in the countries influenced by the Himalayan region. I do remember 12 years ago, you taking me out on an exploration along with a group of people, and you took me up and down safely the third highest mountain in the world, Kanchenjunga. And I was watching at the time and realized that mountains, hiking, and that whole Himalayan region is part of your entire DNA, is part of your bloodstream. How did that come about?
I was born in India and I lived there until I immigrated here when I was 27. But I think it was about 14, 15 years old when my father actually first sent me to a mountaineering school called the Nehru Institute of Mountaineering. And I completed a couple of climbing courses from there, and just kind of loved it, being in the mountains, and never stopped going back. Once I started guiding, I started off as a climbing guide, and then from a climbing guide it moved on to being a trek leader, and from a trek leader to a little more of a cultural guide.
When you said countries influenced by the Himalayas, there's India and Bhutan and Tibet and Nepal all the way down to Sri Lanka and Burma, etc. And looks like you expanded your horizons to travel in other places, and I've seen pictures of you taking groups of people to, say, the Pushkar Fair or even the iconic Taj Mahal. And just tell us about travel in the entire region that you've organized.
And for instance, the Pushkar Camel Fair, it's one of the most popular destinations. I would say in the last 20 years, pretty much every year, we have had a group travel to the Pushkar Camel Fair.
The things I find, as great as modernization is, I find that it also is making big parts of the world very homogeneous. But do you think with this kind of modernization rapidly spreading, especially all over India and that region, that we won't have anything as exotic as the Pushkar Fair?
I found a big difference, say, in the last 10 years. Some of the camel herders actually had cell phones, but they were still wearing their fuchsia and lime green and orange turbans. They were still dressed in their salwar kameez with their, leather chappals, and they were still, riding the camels. The way India is moving, or great parts of South Asia, they haven't given up on their cultural heritage. They still very much embrace it, but yet they are taking in some of modernity, or at least all the good points of it. So I think it's a great mix between the two.
What sort of shifts are you seeing in the way people are traveling, or you are bringing about, shifts in attitudes to how people travel?
India has, one of the biggest Asian rivers, which is the Brahmaputra River, and there is no way to explore that entire region of northeast India because there is not much infrastructure. So this concept of putting in a river cruise boat, which can go up and down the river and then take day excursions to visit all the indigenous tribal populations that are in Assam and in Arunachal Pradesh, in Nagaland, the entire Northeast, is going to be a pretty good trip. And then there's also the game parks there with Kaziranga and Manas. I've been in this tourism business now for 3 decades, and I've got a lot of people that have traveled with me. They've come back. We've had fantastic sunrises on the Taj Mahal or on mountains, fantastic events, and people take great pictures. They come back, but a year later, 2 years later, they remember the people that they met, and not so much the sunrise on Kanchenjunga. Basically, I earn a living out of taking people there. And then there are people that live in that region who are barely able to sustain themselves. I think there is a moral obligation for travelers to do more than just that. And that is what I try to challenge all our clients to do. And that is, can they actually help in, say, poverty elevation, help with education of the really, poorer class in the regions that they are traveling through. We have a number of schools and medical clinics that we provide assistance to through our client base. The biggest program, of course, is what was started in Kerala by the inspiration of this one kid, plus the principal of that school. With the help of the Grace Family Vineyard Foundation, because they funded a lot of this project, we set up a fantastic, nutritious lunch program 5 days a week for the entire school. There was a cook that was hired who cooked, and the parent-teacher body hired the cook, and then they would purchase all the food ingredients from the local women's co-op. The women's co-op was getting everything from the local farmers and the local fishermen. So all the money was being recycled within the community. So the entire community got behind this project. The first year, enrollment went up 30%.
Wow.
Which was great.
Yeah.
And since this program was initiated, which was January of 2006 to now, I think there have been about 128,000 lunches that have been served at this school.
Incredible.
And all this has been funded by our client base that goes and travels in that region.
So what is the role of the travelers who go in there in this, if it's funded by this foundation?
In this particular instance, they primarily finance it, and we spend a day at the school where the travelers actually sit and have lunch.
You are making people from two different worlds that would otherwise just not have come together, overlap and collide. And that is one of the most interesting aspects of this whole project that you're doing.
That is true. And that actually is one of the reasons why I'm in this business too. The fact that I have one foot in Asia and one foot in the US,
Absolutely.
kind of like a bridge between the two.